Hello, everyone. This is Julia Alexander with Be Informed. Listen, it is election season, and I happen to have with me a phenomenal candidate, Mr. Christopher Parker, running for District 4 City Council in the city of Joliet. We are going to talk with Chris, and we're going to find out his platform and what he would like to do for you once he obtained the seat of City Council for the city of Joliet. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Hello, I am very well. I'm elated to be here, and it's always a good day in Joliet when we get to talk about the people.
Absolutely. Once again, thank you, Chris, for doing the interview with me on today.
Thank you.
And letting the listening audience know all about you and your campaign. So we're going to dig right into a few things, Chris. I would like to know, you are running for District 4 in the city of Joliet. Tell my viewing audience, what is it about District 4 that drew you to want to run for candidacy?
Oh, absolutely. Well, It's very simple. Born and raised here, been here all my life. I always tell people I have two grandmothers. One of them is 85 and one of them is 91, living inside the district. And when I look at our matriarchs, but I also look at my mom, my uncle, my brother, and my cousins, my sister, they all live in District 4, and so when I look at my experience and literally the what the Lord has blessed us to accomplish and to experience in our lifetime, it was no other thought but to run for District 4 and to really bring that experience to make sure that there's a quality of life change and economic development change right here in the district. So that's why I'm running.
Okay, and speaking of experience, I know that, Chris, we spoke before, and you've told the story about your grandfather, is it, and the laundromats. And so let's expound on that just a little bit to show the audience that you've come up through some of that entrepreneurship knowledge and go ahead. And
Absolutely, yeah. So my grandfather, Drew Parker, literally third grade education, went on to work at a dry cleaners and the laundromat, and then took that information, learned the operation, and then went on to open up his own. And literally at one point he was running 4 laundromats, and we grew up working and helping him out. And then he got into real estate and some other things that he kept us around on. And so why is that important? Because I watched my grandfather day in and day out run his operation. He was there every single day, talking to everybody that came in and out, built great relationships. Until this day, while I'm on the campaign trail, people are often telling me stories about Mr. Parker. That type of entrepreneurship, service levels, giving back to people, what people don't realize is that stuff end up being transferable. And I'm very thankful for his leadership and his ability to lead at that level. And I'm encouraged and inspired to do the same.
Absolutely. And not only that, Chris, is his determination as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go on and let's talk a little bit more about District 4. What are some of the needs that you see in District 4?
Well, Julie, I get really, really serious with this question because I've spent a lot of time now talking to residents about District 4. And this is not only for District 4, but there's a larger feeling that a lot of people are starting to lose hope with the legislation and the legislative government of our local towns. And when I'm out talking to people in District 4, those folks are telling me that at this particular portion, they're unsatisfied with a lot of the ramblings and the arguments of what's going on down in City Hall. But not only that, but they want more in their town. They're having to drive all over to other towns to experience the basic needs of grocery stores and retail shopping, and just to go out for a good time, a good dinner. Those are things that our families deserve. These are things that makes it very important for me. My wife and I, when we are out, we're actually out in Joliet, but we're also in other neighboring towns because there's certain things that we don't have. Our grocery store, in terms of closest to me, is not within our own town. And so we understand that there are certain parts of South and East Side, there's a food desert. These basic necessities ought to be top priorities. But not only that, I'm talking to people that are telling me that they would like to have better streets, better sidewalks. They're frustrated with the move for more industrial in our towns. I mean, there's a number of issues that I think come up, and this is why city council needs a fighter, and those issues alone is why I want to bring that economic development experience to District 4 and make sure that our folks, our town, our district has a leader that's willing to fight for everybody. And this is not only, again, for District 4, but we all know that seat is also going to be voting on things that represent the city at large. I always, while I'm on the trail, I'm telling people what's good for District 4 is good for all of Joliet, and that's what I'm fighting for.
Absolutely, and that's a good segue for me because I was going to go into how would you think that out to make the decision that's best for the whole city?
Yeah, very good.
Or that particular district as well.
Absolutely. I know exactly where you're going with this, and I think it's a very appropriate question. And honestly, Julia, I'm glad you're asking because I think we need to be asking this question of all candidates because what this is going to get down to is how will you lead? How will you legislate? What goes into your critical thinking process? I'll give you one quick example. So this morning, we had our very first Will County Center for Economic Development meeting. I'm one of the newest board members on that. And at the end of that meeting, I went up to the CEO and I said, I want a little time to speak with you and to really go over the agenda and to make sure that the items that I'm hearing, I'm seeing is what I'm comprehending. I'm understanding, and I'm able to understand both sides, so that I could deliberate, do my own research, along with meeting with the people that is working for our wonderful city. There's a lot of good people down there. We have to talk to these people. We have to make sure that where our ears are open, that it's ultra sensitive to hearing and leaning in on the information, because these votes are very, very critical. And one of the recent votes regarding the construction and the industrialism, those things impact people every day. And I think we can't move to make those decisions lightly. We have to make sure that we do thorough research, that we're talking to the experts. And that's what I've always been. I've been one that believed in collective impact, talking to the right people, building relationships. And Julia, quite frankly, it goes back to my grandfather, where he believed in talking to people, getting information, making sure people knew what was going on and felt good about those are transferable skills that I'm glad that I have, and I'm looking forward to continue to collaborate, learn. And then a step further is, after we get done making that vote, we have to be accountable in explaining what went into that vote to our residents.
Absolutely. So in District 4, Chris, tell me some of the weakest areas. I know we spoke before, and you were talking about the land that the old Silver Cross was sitting on, and how there is economic development opportunities there. So expound on that a little bit.
Absolutely. You know, around 5 years ago or so, when Silver Cross moved out of that space and went over to New Lenox, what I would have loved to have happened is there should have been some discussions around developer and investors around what could have happened with that space. And what ended up happening is that space was demoed or demolition, and then nothing has been there since then. And when I say nothing has been there, we all know that the VA hospital, there's other functions there, but we're talking about the large mass of space that is lying dormant today. A part of our 4-point plan, one of them is economic development. And here's the vision there, right? So you have this space, and this is not the only space in District 4 where there's opportunity to build and develop. So number one, working with partners, identifying folks like the Will County CED, but not only that, investors and developers. There are people out there that would really love to tackle that space and to really make sure they work with the city to make sure that we realize real economic development there. So here's some of the thoughts that I have. So number one, the city does need to have an assessment, and that assessment will allow us to understand what works well in that space, what works well in other spaces in our district, to make sure that when we consider development, what that may look like. Because a hospital was there, does it look like a mixed use where a commercial space where we have at the base level there is maybe some doctor's office, some medical offices there where people can go and see a primary doctor in District 4. But then on top of that, there's some apartments or residential. We talked about affordable housing.
Yes.
Is that an opportunity for affordable housing? Have this mixed use commercial space that would bring and drive people into that area? If you have doctors and other type of medical folks that is occupying that base level floor, then what you may see is other people driving from the area to see their doctor. And if we get a restaurant in that area, now they're shopping there. I mean, these are things that we have to take advantage of, and we have to have the vision and the foresight for. Because when you don't have the vision, when you don't have the plan in place, then what happens is what happens today is when the hospital decides to go to New Lenox, and then now this space is left vacant, and that is a space that could be very used for a number of people within our district that really would like to see true economic development where we don't have to go outside of our area.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. I have one more question. In your district, in District 4, you we know that you have a section that's largely Hispanic and non-speaking English. So how will you communicate with them? What's your strategy for that?
It's very good. It's what I've been saying all along. Collective impact, community partnership. You know, that's why one thing I would tell you I love about this campaign, this race, is that we've gotten a lot of great candidates. And so those folks that are deciding to run, those are people that are going to be partners of ours when we win office. These are people that we have to work with. And not only that, they're good people. And they're going to help us to make sure that we are representing all of District 4. In particular, I love the economic development that's happened with the Collins Street corridor, but there's other corridors that we have to make sure we continue to build and developing. And to answer your question, there is enough leaders for us to come together. And for us, if the table is not there, we'll need to build a table to make sure that we're really, really focusing on representing all of District 4 and those individuals that are Spanish speaking. This is an opportunity for us to sit down and really work together collectively in a spirit of unity, in a spirit of excellence, to make sure that needs are being met. Because I would imagine whichever community, you know, when I was working on the near west side with one of the community groups there, Bicentennial Bluff, in that area, Cunningham area, they have their own needs with zoning and some of the other issues with lighting. And so we work with those folks to have a ComEd night to bring energy efficiency assessments to those folks so they can have, you know, could fill some of these gaps. This is all collective impact. And this is why I think this election is so important, is because you need a champion and you need somebody that's not afraid to work across the aisle, somebody that can work with all parties involved, and to make sure that everybody has a piece of the pie, everybody has a seat at the table, to make sure that our what's, you know, happening in District 4, again, what's good for our district is good everywhere. This is not only a District 4 thing. We need to be making sure all of Joliet has a very unified approach to how we're solving complex issues in our town and our city. And one of the biggest things that I would love, and I can't wait to happen, is for us to see a Joliet a strategic plan. That strategic plan will look at all of our districts and find the best way to move forward, so that when our time is up, the folks that's coming behind us will have some type of map to go off of, to refine, and we will literally begin to see some of our best days in our town.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have two more questions for you, Chris. We have a seemingly large population of homeless. Give me your strategy on that.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. You know, the good news is I've served for probably around 3 or 4 years on an organization called Housing Forward. It serves West Cook County, where I work, and have some involvement there. And I'm actually was the board treasurer until recently. But I brought that up because I've spent time looking at solutions, transformational solutions at another area that I would love to bring here, to bring to your point. When the COVID crisis happened, our organization had to think really, really quickly. And what our organization did is we were able to go into an old hotel, and we were able to transform that so that folks that are facing what we call transitional housing issues had a place to go and had a place to stay. But not only that, we work with the churches in that area, churches that could be able to offer food services and really bring that care and passion to people that really need it most. But our issue in Will County is, to me, is in this area is collective impact. We need to really sit down and look at this population and to work together to find out what are the solutions. Because here's what is not a solution. It's not a solution to have one side of our town to have to answer that call and to have to figure out a way exactly to have a solution to deal with folks that are dealing with homelessness. We need this solution to be answered by all parts of our town. We need to incorporate partnership with Will County and some of the resources that's handed down from the state and fed to really come up with an equitable solution that makes sure that we're meeting this particular need. And I think, to me, when this issue is going to be resolved is when lawmakers, community leaders, legislators, folks that are high influence, when we start looking at the homeless population as family, that's when this thing will get solved, and that's when it gets serious. Because when you work with family, you tend to come together and figure out what's best for them. And I think there's room for us to sit down and have a real robust conversation, Absolutely. A meaningful, sincere conversation of how we look at this population and how we come together to help solve it. This is not something that is going to be solved overnight, but it is something that I think can be solved with collective impact. And that means everybody's at the seat at the table and everybody's throwing their input, and let's come up with a plan that we can actually get done to help our most vulnerable.
Absolutely, absolutely. One more question before I have you look into the camera. We've been having somewhat seemingly to be issues with our police department. Give me your take on how you would, work across the aisle and try to rectify some of the things that supposed to be out there.
Yeah, absolutely. This is this is probably, in my opinion, one of the top issues facing the city of Joliet at this point. There was a news article that listed Joliet as one of the safest towns. And then at the same token, at one of the more recent board meetings, the police chief gave some information on crime is up in certain areas and down in some other areas. And one of the areas that is up is financial crimes. So there's a number of things that's happening. But one of the biggest things that I would tell you first that we need clear, concise data to support where we're at with crime in our town, so that people are clear and understand. So District 4 deserves that. All of our districts deserve that. Clear and transformative data that supports exactly where we are with crime, so that way people are not confused in terms of the data that's coming out. That's number one. Number two, again, there needs to be a conversation that is held with city government, with policing, relative to how we can come together to enforce and to increase a robust neighborhood policing program. The community and neighborhood policing program is critical for a number of reasons. Number one, police are not going to always be at every scene of the crime. That's number one.
Right.
Number two, a ton of policing, in my opinion, is not always the answer. I think that the best type of town, I got to tell you this real quickly.
Okay.
When I did research on crime in other towns that are the safest, do you know what I found out is more policing wasn't listed. What was listed was economic development. It was a town that everybody felt like they could be a part of. Everybody was partaking in it. I mean, there's things that we need to do from an economic development standpoint that will not only help this, but there's also neighborhood policing that we talk a lot about. But I'll tell you this, when I'm traveling to some of these neighborhood meetings, one of the Sergeant Nicodemo, her and I had a conversation about this, and a large part of what I took out of that conversation is whenever there is policing shortages,
Yes.
then what ends up happening is, unfortunately, is then neighborhood policing are pulled first. All right, and so one of the things we need to do is first we need to make sure there's adequate policing, and what that means is that's not adding on. That's just getting us to a number that we need, that we understand through data that will support a safe town. Once you get to that particular point, then we need to make sure that we have the most trained and skilled officers, because a lot of the issues occur when we don't have the most trained and skilled officers on the force. And so we want to make sure that I would promote to make sure we have training, that we have to make sure that these particular people have the correct gear, that these particular people are held accountable to make sure that they're doing the best at their job possible given given certain situations. But ultimately, this is going to come down to a situation where we need all hands on deck. When I think about neighborhood police, I don't necessarily always focus in on the police officer. I think about the general population of people. The more we can have neighborhood police officers that are part of our community, that attend our meetings, that attend if we have block parties, attend our churches, and that are more visible and to build a relationship with community, the better off and more comfortable if you see something, you say something. And that's the accountability piece. So there's a number of things that I think we can do. But all in all, there needs to be a opportunity for residents to come in to share their thoughts on how things can go about. I would love to make sure the police chief is a part of that, the local legislators are a part of that, and that word collective impact is what I'm willing to bring, what I believe is why I should be a person that folks are choosing to as their choice for District 4, is because collective impact, when done well, when done right, it really can solve complex issues like
Absolutely.
crime.
Well, Chris, I hear all through this interview, unite, unite, unite.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
gotta be your platform. So once again, tell my viewing audience what is your platform?
Yeah, so my platform is a 4-point plan, and so it took a lot of time.
Yes.
So 4-point plan, the first one is economic development. That's really important. We've talked about the Silver Cross site, but that's not on. We're also going to be looking at zoning and how to reform some of our zoning rules that really keep investors and developers out from choosing District 4 as a means and a way to really focus in on economic development. It's something that's near and dear. I'm a vice president at a bank, and I work in this space of CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, and I'm also director of community banking. So that allows me to work with various communities to make sure we're looking at things from an equitable lens. So that economic development and that experience is going to come together to help make sure District 4 realizes its brightest days. And then, of course, communication. In my time of working in community, I found out that some of the things that the community don't know or don't have the access to or the information, that's causing a large gap into the quality of life. Let me give you a quick example. I found out from going to neighborhood meetings that a lot of folks are breaking into cars because people are leaving their doors unlocked. Well, imagine if we were able to give that data to all of our District 4 residents and they had that information. There's something in their mind that would trigger, make sure we lock the doors. And before you know it, now that number decreases because of information. Information is power, communication is power, and we have to make sure that we look at all types of new avenues to increase communication, whether that's through text blasts and social media and email blasts. There's a number of things we need to look at to make sure that communication is very important for our district, and I'm committed to doing that. And of course, we're also going to be looking at safety and security. We talked a lot about making sure that people could feel safe and secure in their homes. That's very, very important to me. And I want to make sure that you all know that as the number one issue dealing with safety and security, my affirmative agreement in terms of this role is to really make sure that we tackle that, and we work extensively with those particular policing departments and all those first responders to make sure that we're listening and that we're putting things in place to make sure that this town is safe and secure. And last but not least, pastors and faith-based leaders, getting with those individuals, making sure those people have information on what's going on down in city hall and city council, to make sure those particular people can join in and helping us make sure we have the best town. When our pastors and our leaders are kept up to speed, and when those folks are stepping up to the plate to make sure that we have the best Joliet that we can, I think we're going to have a better city with having our pastors and leaders to join forces, to lock arms, and to make sure that we can unite, and to make sure that we can best represent all of our residents. That's my 4-point plan that I'm committed, and I'm hoping and praying that I earn your vote on April the 4th or sooner, because we are now available to vote now with early voting.
Okay, excellent. In closing, Chris, first of all, let me do this. I'd like to say thank Road to Eternity for allowing us to come in and do this wonderful interview. Road to Eternity right here on Jefferson Street in Joliet, Illinois. Ms. Sheila White and Mr. Michael White, we appreciate you and thank you so much. And Christopher, God bless you on your trail to becoming the next City Council for District 4. And you are doing a magnificent job, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
God bless you.